Hi everyone, welcome to a a Muggle's Guide to Security in the Cloud. Now, before I get started, I do want to mention that Muggle is never going to be used as a negative term here, because to me, it's interchangeable with newbie. Just means that you have powers that you've yet to discover. I guess I should go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Marquez, and I am the Security and Linux Advocate at Intezer. What does that mean? It means that I get to work with other wizards to dissect spells and figure out how they were put together. But this wasn't always the case. Before this, I was a Linux system administrator, and this meant that I was able to learn spells that helped me cast spells around my customers' environments and protect them from any attacks that they were going to face. And then I was able to progress my craft to build the cloud itself. And then I learned how to actually break spells apart and put them into these little, hold on. Yes, you Muggles call them containers. All right, I'm being a dork, and that is what you should 100% expect from this presentation. What you need to know is my name is Elle, and I am a wizard. And this talk is going to be cheesy, and I mean over the top cheesy. And you're going to groan and go like, oh my God, I can't believe she just said that. And that is perfect. Because when we're virtual, you're going to pay attention to other things. Your kids are going to walk in. Trust me, I've done recordings where my kids just walk in and start talking to me in the middle of it. It's going to happen to you. You're going to hear it from the side and you're going to be like, I'm sorry, what did she say? And you're going to tune in and you're going to remember it. So when somebody asks you a question, you're going to be like, oh, let me tell you what happened. And it's going to be great. With that said, let's get into today's agenda. Now, today's agenda is really, really simple. We're going to talk about our spell books, and we're going to delve into the terminology in it. I mean, mudbloods and wizards and Death Eaters. Oh my. And from there, we're going to talk about Hogwarts. I mean, this is the key foundation to our world, right? Then we're going to delve in some polyjuice. And what are you all here for, right? You're here to take defense against the dark arts. All right, maybe I've carried the analogy too long because you probably have no clue what we're going to talk about today. So what are we going to talk about today? Terminology. It's at the foundation of any communication that we have in this industry. Then we're going to talk about cyber criminals. I hate to say this, but they're the only reason we have a job. If they didn't exist, what would we be doing? And we're going to have a serious conversation about what it is that we are most afraid of in cybersecurity, and that's the unknown. Then a key factor that we don't ever talk about in cybersecurity. And I can tell you, I've been in the field for a while, and it's not until recently that I've really heard it. And that's the concept of code reuse. Okay, not going to geek out now. I'll wait till I get to that part. And of course, we're going to definitely focus on defense. Now, check that word out for a minute and then check it throughout my presentation. A little Easter egg because I'm a dork. All right, let's kick this off with spells and terminology. Now, if you all would please take out your spell books, this is really where we need to kick off this class. One thing you need to know, though, is terminology in cybersecurity is this big alphabet game. And I don't take myself seriously. Have you not figured this out throughout this entire presentation? So I'm going to say things incorrectly. I might call things incorrectly. I've had a long day. I'm going to stumble over my words. And if that's what you're focused on, then you're missing the entire purpose of this conversation, because it's going to happen whenever you're working with a team. One of the phrases, and I promise you, it's not verbatim because I can't remember, but it was very similar to it, was a senior level tech trying to impress us, little muggles that were there, and saying, our company's EC2 instances have been compromised due to CVE 2009-021, or 0021. Go look it up. Legitimately, I remember that part. We can't, and we can't afford for these attackers to circumvent the certificate chain via DSA and ECDSA keys. Who's impressed by that? You don't impress me by your terminology. You really just kind of make me feel bad for you that you feel you have to speak that way. And you're going to be in that situation. People are going to be able to impress you with the spells that they cast because they're wizards and you'd never be able to understand. You know what? You're a Muggle. Be proud of it, because you can actually say, you know what, an attack happened on our Amazon cloud servers and it was successful, so we really should fix our authentication. That's it. You spoke Muggle language and you got everything clear and understandable. All right, I want you to go ahead and pull out your first spell book, right? This is your standard book of spells grade. Oh man, I forgot completely to actually tell the organizers that you were going to need these spell books. So we're going to have to edit this talk and we're going to just kind of come back to it. You can attend my, wizard class for cloud security because we'll delve into it, but you'll be fine. I'll give the links to the organizers and you can get them later. All right. The whole concept of this book is all around terminology. I still use it. Like I probably used it a few days ago because sometimes you know a term, but it's really hard to vocalize it, to be able to explain it to others. And maybe one of the reasons that I actually, am telling you about this book, maybe a little like Lockhart here, is if you look really closely on the screen, you can see that I was involved in the forward writing of this book. And that's because the authors of this book really believed in the campaign that I've started about it's okay to be new. Just think of it as it's okay to be a Muggle. The next book is going to be your Dissecting the Hack book. And this is what I call the Storybook of Spells. It's because it's an actual story written about two guys who are out there, like really living the life that we all want to in cybersecurity, kind of borderlining criminal, but and they fall into the world of Death Eaters. And as you're going through terminology and as you're reaching spells, you can go to the back and you can get a true explanation of how those spells actually impacted the storyline. Let's get into why you're actually here in class today. And that's the attack. One key fact in every cyber attack is that there has to be some form of wizard, maybe a very talented Muggle who hasn't discovered he's a wizard, that is involved behind it. I don't care what the threat is. I don't care how it's been automated. Somebody wrote the code. Somebody launched that attack for it to start. In the security industry, we really always like to look at these attackers as the Death Eaters, right? It's not just some common wizard. It is somebody who has this scary power to be able to get into our systems and cause this havoc. I mean, this is the face of an attacker, right? Somebody sitting there with their hoodie up and the Guy Fawkes mask up. Wow, I told you I wasn't gonna be able to talk. And they're in this dark room crafting and writing their evil spells, writing their malware to compromise our environment. This couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, most of the time, our attackers look like this. And, honestly, in the regular world, outside of the wizard world, outside of Harry Potter, there are no true blue bloods, pure blood wizards. It's all regular humans who have learned a trait, who have spent the time to teach grains of salt how to do so much more. I mean, after all, that's all computers started with. And unfortunately, they've decided that they're going to use their powers for malicious acts, such as targeting our system, such as launching their malicious spells, their malicious code. And it's truly important for us not to group all these attackers in the same bucket. Because when we do, we really place our companies at the forefront of actually being attacked. Because we go into these crazy scenarios of how we're going to attack. I mean, it's going to be this advanced APT who's going to be targeting our specific systems, trying to get, through all our walls of defense. And they're going to be targeting this specific database because they're already going to know. And we build these scenarios in our minds. And then some common kid, I don't know, 16, 7-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, maybe 7, playing around on his dad's computer, finds like a script that he's like, oh, this is really cool, I should try this, does a port scan, on Shodan, finds something, launches it, takes down your entire environment. If this seems like, that would never happen. Like, you've gone too far in your examples. I'll put a link on it, lopunk.com/Charlotte, and or you could just Google it. Like, I'm sorry, I'm getting really excited and nerding out, but I want you to Google Mafia Boy, aka the boy who took down the internet. That's not an example that I just gave you. That's a true story. So our attackers have to have something that they're targeting, right? They have to go and actually breach an environment. They have to have a goal because, hey, I can do all the thinking about doing evil things and writing all the spells. It doesn't accomplish anything until it actually occurs. So this is where we're going to talk about Hogwarts. And when you read the books, if you've watched the movies, you feel like you really understand what that castle is. Like, I could draw it out for you. I can tell you what paintings were there. I can, create the world for you because I've read that book 15 times. But if you actually understand that there's no way for all of us to know that. I mean, that's highlighted over and over in the book. That's true with all of our environments. We've got schematics and we've got all this planning and we've got policy books and procedure books. And the truth is that technology is changing so quickly. The cloud has brought the ability for this agility. We have, companies such as Netflix and Capital One spinning up containers every 10 seconds. I've seen talks and presentations where they're talking about it happening like every few seconds. Tell me how you're going to see visibility in that. And it's not just containers, it's cloud servers, it's using things like Lambda functions. It's impossible for us to know every single thing that's occurring within our AWS cloud. Now let's add a hybrid cloud. We got Azure, we got GKS, we got Google Cloud for our Kubernetes instances, and we're at a disadvantage. So what we fear the most is the unknown. I've had conversations with companies and I'm like, okay, let's break this down. We're going to go from the bottom up. What are you trying to protect? Our environments. That doesn't tell me anything. Like the analogy that I use, and I've used several times, so my apologies if you've heard it, is the fact that that's like taking your car in and it's making a noise, it's doing whatever, and and the mechanic asks, hey, what are we working on today? And you say, the car, and walk off. It's possible for him to figure it out, and it's going to take a lot of work. And guess what? While we're trying to figure out what that environment is, while we're trying to figure out where that data is, it's going to shift 15 times. So the number one thing that you need to know is, what are you trying to protect? If it's your data, where is it located? Is it in multiple clouds? Is it in a database? Is it, it's in the database, sorry. Where is that database located? Are there databases out there that aren't being reached by anyone? So then they just become a vulnerability, someplace for attackers to be able to target because we don't know where it really lays. My dear Muggles, this is where your power is just going to explode. Because your higher level wizards, they're like, oh, we know everything. We have all these schematics. Look, I have this entire wall of boards that I can see all the spells being crafted, where I kind of want to go X-Men here and like where all the mutants are, but I'm not gonna cross streams because that has bad consequences. We ask why. As Muggles, we have questions. We say, wait, why did that happen? How do I know? How do I handle this ticket? Like, it is those questions that are really going to help companies be able to develop a new strategy to protecting to the cloud. Wizards are still just stuck in their old ways, as like infrastructure on premise. My dear Muggles, this is your power, and it is stronger than you will actually ever know. How do you actually implement? How do you use it? The same way that Harry Potter did. What he needed was visibility. So he was lucky enough to be gifted with a certain map. To me, this was a very exciting part of the book because we finally see, the story just, to me, expand much further than, Harry within himself. We started seeing the interaction between other characters and the storyline that weren't specifically from his point of view. But what happened when he got this map, specifically further in the books, not the original, like go down, pretend that we're just like condensing them all together, is he was able to see a character that wasn't supposed to be there. I mean, he was there, obviously, like the map was saying, but Harry had never seen him. There'd been no one that ever saw him. So what was going on? This is exactly where you need to have your mindset. Because as a Muggle, I'm gonna be honest with you. And people say I shouldn't say this because it's condescending or whatever, but look, you're gonna be lost. You're not gonna know what's going on. And that's okay. That's where your questions spur from. But it's very intimidating because we see an issue, we look at the map, we know it's there, but we don't always understand. Like, that's fundamentally the cloud. You're not alone in that. The cloud is changing. You have 3 months release cycles. You have all those deployments that I talked about. AWS has something as of like 18,000 services available right now. And by the time you watch this video, it might have completely changed. You can't be scared of the unknown because you're going to live in fear your entire career. And I don't mean to like fearmonger. I don't mean to scare you. I'm going to present a very real picture to you of what you're going to see. But what I want you to know is not being afraid, accepting that that's going to happen. That's what you need to really level up from going to a muggle to a wizard. And it's going to take some time, and that's okay. Because it's taking time, it means that you're not taking shortcuts, that you're growing with the cloud itself, and that you are willing to take the time to understand. I've said it so many times, but I need you to listen. That is what sets you apart. That is where your power is. And that really became the reason that I decided to write this talk, Muggle's Guide to Cloud Security, because it's not that difficult to understand when you break it down to the basics. And that's exactly where you are right now. Okay, enough, building you up, though I think it's important. Let's dig into the next important part. And that's polyjuice. Now, we all saw polyjuice as this very comical concept, right? Oh, you know what? There was a little hair from the cat turned into a cat kind of hybrid, funny, funny, funny. But the fact is that this was the core of the attack that happened. And we don't stop to actually make the connection at how powerful this truly was. It's not just a comical stance. I mean, even when they talk, and they really go into Harry trying to mount his defenses and get information. Like, hey, look, Harry's dressed in Hermione's clothes. Oh, ha, ha, he has this little tight dress. Like, it really, brings down the power of this attack. And that's exactly what we're doing when it comes to cybersecurity. I mean, let's stop, take a breath, and really analyze this picture, but do so through the eyes of a security-minded muggle. I love how I just kind of keep putting you in different places. Hey, welcome to the cloud, welcome to security. Your job's gonna change 15 times and you've gotta change your outlook. Okay, so what happened was everybody took some polyjuice and they started bringing out the appearance of Harry Potter. But they didn't get the mannerisms. They didn't get the personality. They mutated in a sense, but they still regained who they were. And yes, they completely tried to match all of the mannerisms and their voices, and it was funny, but this is actually a process that is happening with attackers. There's this concept called polymorphic malware, and it's malware that's written in order to continuously change. It goes into a system, it kind of worms its way throughout other systems, pivoting, and as it does, it's constantly changing the code that it is. It changes part of its code, which then bypasses our signature-based detection. It changes the way that it acts, bypassing our anomaly-based detection. This isn't a new concept. Polymorphic malware has been around longer than I have in this industry, which might not say much, but you get the point. You can talk to any old neckbeard, any long-beard wizard, and they'll be able to tell you a story about polymorphic malware. The scary thing is that it's still occurring today. These type of attacks are occurring every day, and we still don't have the defenses that we need to. Stop to think about this. Decades of a certain type of attack, and it's still functional today. Where are we with our security posture? This is one of my favorite kind of malware families to speak about. And I always feel weird saying that I have favorite malware because it kind of makes me feel that I'm saying it's okay for attacks to happen. I'm not. But when you're going to be, especially like in the DFIR, in the research center, you have to enjoy what you're doing because there's never a true answer. It's always another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole and another piece of malware that's changed. Accept that, own it, love it, and you are going to excel in this industry. But what you're seeing here over on the left side where it says family samples is literally that, different samples, different signatures of malware that we've seen out in the wild. And I'll include a link on my website where you can go through and reanalyze the code and see, what else is appearing from there. I mean, look at what you're seeing right here when it comes to the first scene. How many of these strands occurred on the 29th? This is how quickly this malware is actually changing. And you can see as far back as September 14th that you're seeing it. Now, one key piece that isn't discussed, that by listening to this talk, you're gonna have the heads up, is that you can't take ancient, I'm gonna go with ancient, but whatever, standardized, antivirus, it worked on our infrastructure and port it over to the cloud. Because historically, you can see that it's failing. And how can I make these, big accusations? And how can I say historically? It's right here on the screen that you're looking at. Move over to the last column over there that says virus total. This is how many of the engines on virus total, I shouldn't laugh, on virus total actually detected this piece of malware. Okay, so starting from the very, very bottom, we see 47 out of 69 detected. Okay, and the reason the numbers at the end change is because sometimes some engines are available when they're not. Not the point. You can just look at the variables. So, okay, you know what? That's getting too close to half. And we did something. Wait, the very next string, the very next piece of the variant of that malware is now getting 21 out of 60. How are we going down in detection from the time that we've first seen it? And you know what? Oh, look right there, like 1, 2, 3, 4 up. 0 detection, 0. This is known malware. We know it's happening. We've talked about polymorphic malware. Like, none of this is a secret. None of this should even catch our wizards off guard. But it is. It's right there. I'm not making this up. You can go run the scan yourself. The way that I relate this back to Harry Potter, maybe you, dear Muggles, can actually explain this to our wonderful wizards this way so that they'll understand, is when we're looking at our professor of the dark arts. He fooled everyone, almost, but follow me along. Our analogies aren't perfect. And two, he was just the sad little pathetic man who we should probably feel bad because he can't even really speak. But secretly, he had powers within him that, I was surprised when it happened. I don't know about you, but it really caught me off guard in that part of the movie. And that sample that I just showed you, I go back to the screen here, of IP Storm, has an interesting background to it. You see, IP Storm is actually malware that was written for Windows. Like, how many of you would be sitting here going, I should probably look for that Windows malware on my Linux box? I promise you, now, hopefully people are thinking that, but about this time they weren't. However, everything is constantly changing. And we've seen the release of a whole new spell language, if you want to see it. We've seen Golang really start to prosper in the cloud environment. It is the language that all your cloud native staff, ooh, fancy word, right? Let's get our spell book out. All it means is applications and things that were written specifically to work well in the cloud, like Kubernetes. Like, I'll add links. But they're not even there, I'll go add them because it is a very important term that you need to understand so you can impress the wizards out there. But IP Storm was actually dubbed from the interplanetary storm, and it used peer-to-peer P2 networking. That's what it's called. Impressive, right? Well, it didn't matter. Like, that was Windows-based system, and attackers went, okay, we have something that's working. It's continuously working. Why are we going to reinvent the wheel? Let's just take that code, change it up a little bit, and target Linux systems. When Inazur researchers found it, it actually had zero base detection within it. And it was running on Linux and Mac OS. There is a whole new field that we need to be aware of, a whole new crop of wizards, evil wizards, Death Eaters, but they're wizards. And they are completely owning this field because they're thinking in ways that our wizards right now are not. So let that be another lesson to you. You need to be more like the Death Eaters. Maybe that's not the right way to say this lesson, but you need to have creativity. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to think outside the box. Because the power that all of these attackers have is the power to fool us in who they are. They don't look as threatening. We're looking for Death Eaters, but they're just this underground group that we really don't know about that much, and we really haven't placed that much priority in catching them. I had a very, I'm gonna go with scary situation occur the other day. And I was talking to a company, and I'd kind of seen hints of this before, but this was the first time that somebody just came out and told me this. And they said, you know what? When we have releases in the cloud, it needs to happen quickly. It needs to be out there as soon as possible because we've made promises to our customers that this function is going to come out. Understandable, right? That's what a company does. And they're talking about how their deployment cycle comes. And they said, eventually, we know that there are vulnerabilities in the cloud. We know that people know about these vulnerabilities, but we have to get that function, that part of the product out. So we sit down and we look at it. What are the benefits that we're going to have getting this out? Like, you know, our customers are going to be excited. We were the first to market. We're going to gain money. People are going to come. And what's the likelihood that we are going to be attacked? What's the likelihood that that vulnerability can't be fixed in time? Fix it in production before we're attacked. And the probability that attackers are even going to know it's there. So how much money do we stand to make versus all of that, and how much money do we stand to lose? How scary is that? That's your data, that's your money. And this is the way that they're playing. They're choosing not to see that side of the face. They're choosing only to focus on that innocent, quibbling, can't even talk right professor of the dark arts. Now, talking about professors of the dark arts, have you ever stopped to think about how many of them really weren't what they thought they were? Like, shouldn't Hogwarts have maybe had some, I don't know, kind of vetting or something after the first one got through? Shouldn't we have some kind of vetting or monitoring after the first time the malware got through? This is probably one of the analogies that isn't even a stretch. Okay, done a lot of talking. You know, this is interesting. And one thing I should have mentioned, I'm completely gone, is that the dark arts teachers that we suspected the most to be the evil ones, to be the ones that were crafting malicious spells, are the ones who were actually trying to help. Like, oh, that was very comical to me. Great writing, but we can't take things at face value when it comes to our environments, when it comes to the code that we're running, because something might look like, I really need to dig into this. And then we spend hours upon hours, and I can tell you really do, delving into this rabbit hole because you know it's something, only to find out that it was just a blip in the code. The dev ran something and forgot to tell us. They updated their code and, oh, yeah, it used up more CPU. And what happened during that time? A crafty attacker who, you know, seemed very innocent was able to launch code in our boxes that acted the way that we expected it to. And now our data's for sale to the highest bidder. Simple explanation. You know, I've gone very high, I've gone very low. And if you are a muggle who just has a day or two even learning about the world of the wizards, might be a little complicated. That's okay. You'll get up to us and you'll be a wizard probably long before I am. Here's our simplified explanation. Hogwarts, and y'all are probably going to be laughing if I'm not saying that correctly after this whole day. You say it differently, but you get the point. Anyways, think of that as our host machine. That's our cloud server. And that's really where everything happens. And one of the clear things that we need to see, how I talked about visibility, is we don't know everything that's there. it's important that we use tooling that helps us really look into this. Now, this tooling can be completely different for each company. I'm not telling you what specifically to use, but I'm lazy and I know the tools that I use are simple. So that's what I'm going to be showing you. So take that and do whatever it is that you want to. But by actually being able to see not only what hosts that we have, but what's running on them. Like, which one of these are my Kubernetes instances? What nodes work with them? What images are running on them? You can get visibility to actually be able to monitor if the attacker is in your system. This is key. I don't remember if I said this in this talk before because I say it so many times, but behind every attack, there has to be malicious code run. Like, you can have all of the back doors available to your castle that you want to, and unless somebody walks through them and does something, it's not that big of a deal, right? Somebody walks into the wall, or into the doors and just kind of stands there. I mean, it sucks that they're there, but they're not really doing anything. It's when they start monitoring, when they start launching and looking into your environments and trying to do things, when that spell is cast, that you really can monitor them and that there's actually an issue. Because it goes back into, we have the Great Hall and we have hundreds, if not thousands of students, and they're all supposed to be there. But could you go down that list and name each one of them to me and tell them what they were doing and what house they were a part of? Like, I know like 3 of these characters, all of them were other extras that weren't even given speaking lines. But at the same time, how many evil wizards, how many defense against the dark arts people were allowed to be there? I mean, to a certain degree, when did Malfoy become evil? We see it happen. We know it's happened. But do you know the exact moment that it occurred? That's what you need visibility to. Good code could be turned into malicious. I didn't put it in the slide, but hey, I just go off the cuff. There is a piece of malware that was found called Docky. Docky is probably my second favorite example to use. So if you hear a bunch of my talks, you're going to hear it. But it's fascinating to me because Docky isn't malicious. There's absolutely no malicious code to it. He's Malfoy. You know what? He's probably rude. Some of our images like don't work well on containers, and we hate it as security folks because it brings up alerts, but nothing was ever happening. So Docky is just a piece of code, ran up as an image, but within seconds, it turned malicious because it was able to use the curl command. And as a former sysadmin, I can tell you, we use that a lot. It is a great troubleshooting tool. It pulled down malicious code, it ran it, and like that, it was gone. Now, our host has been compromised. There's perhaps, the one that we discovered, and once again, zero-based detection, was running a crypto miner. Like all of this without really anything alerting you to what had occurred. It's kind of like what I said before. Shouldn't there have been some like vetting process on who was going to take that position if it kept being taken by people who were trying to kill Harry? Just saying. Which brings me to Mad Eye Moody. Am I the only person that as I'm reading it going, there's something not right with this guy? But he's trusted, he's written all these books, people can verify who he is. Like, we back this teacher, he's going to be great and you're going to learn a lot about it. That's what you're seeing in polymorphic malware. Like, this is one of the examples that I like to use because this goes completely to polyjuice. You have code, which part of it looks like it's trusted, right? I mean, we've got normal libraries that we'd expect to see on our system, but all of a sudden we start seeing pieces of code that really should kind of go like, hey, I've got something on my system and it's running like malicious libraries. Like, why didn't that trigger us into investigating it? Hey, this shares a lot of code with known malware called XMRigMiner. Why didn't that trigger us to investigate it? I can go all the way up. This goes back into the fact that our traditional defenses, that which our wizards are used to using, aren't enough. And this is where you're going to shine. You're going to bring in new ideas, new ways of thinking, new questions to ask. And that's what's going to help all of our defenses get stronger. Because you're going to be able to say, you know what? We need to know what's running in our boxes. And I'm going to tell you, people are going to look at you and go, what? Like, it's not a conversation that we have anymore, because after all, we have cloud security products, you know, we have dementors flying around the castle, helping protect because we know an attack is coming. Like, at some point, you have to own your own defenses and know what's going on. And that's where our security team comes in. We're trying our hardest. And you keep hearing all these statistics about how, you know, we don't have enough people in cybersecurity. And others have said it, but really my belief is that we don't have enough people with the curiosity to really kind of stand up to the wizards, to be in that interview and just own how sometimes your lack of knowledge is the best thing that's going to bring you your strength. That's a whole nother talk. So I'm just completely going to stop here and say that your assets and your most valuable possession as part of the security team is going to be having visibility into everything. If you're the guy that can go in, or girl, not bad, go in and look and say, you know what, here are our hosts. We've got clean code. We're good. We can focus on the network. Awesome. If there is an attack happening and people are delving into the network and they're digging through and what firewalls, and you can pull up your tool and be like, that's great. Guess what? They're already in the host. They're running commands. Our data's gone. Wow. Like, I'm geeking out now. Like, you don't understand how different that is from the current status quo. All right, here I am. Last one, I swear, is that a lot of times in the security industry, we believe that because we get code, because we get applications from a trusted source, that we're fine. You pulled up your image from AWS. You're running Ubuntu direct. You went to the site and you launched it. You're running your Node.js application specifically from the repository. Go Google Node.js compromise. That's it. Just go Google it. I will let you make that discovery completely on your own. Did you know that the Linux kernel was compromised? Attackers got into it, and to this day, they can't tell you how long it happened or what it was there. Estimates about 6 months, but they're not sure. There have been so many repositories. Now, I'll post links just to make sure I get these right, but I believe it's the Apache repository that's been owned 3 times. They know what happened. They have an estimate of what occurred, but you're following that trusted source and running the code on your system. And sometimes, even as you're running the code, new CVEs are found. I mean, what was it? 18,300 and something CVEs were released last year, and like 4,000 of them were labeled as critical. I can't tell you what CVEs came out this month. I can't even tell you they've been patched. But if you know, and you have whatever tool it is that you choose to know, and you can have these conversations with your devs, then you are worth your weight in gold when it comes to this industry. Okay, I've said a lot, and I'm happy to answer questions because I know I just did like this verbal dump on you, and hopefully you saw a lot of it as encouraging. Hopefully you've been taking notes and you know things that you want to go out and Google, but there's no better way to learn than to ask questions. And that's why I'm here. So, jump on the Discord, ask. I promise you, I will do my best to answer it. And if I don't know, do you remember at the very beginning that I said I work directly with researchers? I will find you the answer that you need, because the wizarding world is open to everyone, including you muggles. So with that, let's jump into questions.